Hello, New York. It's really great to be here. I'm happy to be here. Today, I am talking to you about prototypes and play. Or the alternate title for my talk is Bosozoku kara web design no lesson, which what we can learn about web design from Japanese biker gangs. So, this is all going to play out. I majored in Japanology at my university of Texas. So, when you are building websites and you're saying, I just can't do it, remember, this guy majored in anime, and you can do it. You're good. You're probably way more qualified. So, let's keep going. I work at Paravel. It's a small 3-person shop. I work with 2 of my best friends, Trent Walton and Reagan Ray. We are not hiring, so I'll just keep going. It's really cool to work with 2 people you know. You learn a lot about each other. We've been together like 8 years. That's 100 years in web time. It's really great. Really a fun place to work. Worked for a little startup out of Seattle and helped them redesign their website. I co-host Shop Talk Show with Chris Coyer of CSS Tricks. Is Chris in the room? No? Yeah? Okay. Hey, there he is. Hey, it's a sound effects podcast that also talks about web design. If you are interested in the intersection of fart sounds and web design, this is the podcast for you. And the latest episode, I'm just going to throw, I don't really usually do this, but the latest episode is with Eric Meyer of CSS fame. It is a must listen to if you're a designer on the web. So we've been working with this company, Retail Me Not. Who's heard of Retail Me Not? It is an online coupon place. Coupons, yeah, exciting? Oh boy. Just as exciting as you think. But I'm going to show some examples from their stuff that we've been working on, and that's kind of slowly rolling out. So today, I'm going to talk about prototypes. And I know what you're saying. You guys you put on your best rayon shirt, and you're like, but he said play in the title, and you're like, what is I run a serious business? Don't tell me about. I'm talking. And no, totally. Like, how do I play when I'm running a serious business, and what does it mean? And then I'm like, everything. And like an EMP of knowledge just blew up over the crowd. And you guys are just like, whoa, my mind's melted. Yep. I don't even know what that means. All right, so here we go. I'm going to talk to you about some tools. I'm going to give you some practical stuff. If you saw Brad earlier, jeez, that worked out, didn't it? All right. Okay, so I'm going to tell you some tools. I want to give you some practical, tangible things that you guys can kind of walk away with before you hit my talk and you're like, God, I didn't learn a single thing. So I'm going to give you some URLs and stuff that you can scribble down or visit or bookmark or whatever. But I'm going to talk about different kinds of prototypes. These the first edition, the first set, I like to call clicky image prototypes. And these are where you basically use an app or something to stitch together images. And InVision app is a good one. I've used this before. Who's using InVision app? Okay, yeah, it's pretty cool. You can it's good like a hub for your design team, but as well you can kind of start doing view 1 and then you tap on that and then you go to view 2. They kind of, here's their little demo, but you upload a thing, draw some boxes, click a box, and it goes to a different image, basically, right? So that's pretty good. It's really good for solving UX flows and how to get through things. There's Flinto, which is pretty cool. I've used this as well. This one tries to kind of install sort of like a native app, like a little block on your home screen. And so it's pretty cool. It's the same sort of thing. You have images and you drew boxes and you kind of link through them. This is pretty cool. Not really new technology. Fireworks has this technology. Macromedia Fireworks 2.0 2000 MX or whatever. The next one, these are kind of the next level, but these are pretty cool too. These are the clicky motion prototypes. I'm good at naming things. Framer.js, who's used Framer or heard of it? Yeah, so this is pretty cool. This is like, this is getting into, like, you actually write CoffeeScript, you actually write kind of things, but their demo section is really, really impressive, and I encourage you to go check them out. But basically, you write a little bit of CoffeeScript, it's like JavaScript, and then you can kind of like start experimenting with physics and the animations of your application. This is an example from Josh Puckett, who works at Dropbox, Carousel. You can kind of see, like, it's cool. This was actually, I think, translated into the website, and it translated really, really well. But this was like his mobile onboarding they did with JavaScript. It's kind of cool. Maybe like a high bar if you're not into code. Origami from Facebook. Facebook's behind this, so it's got to be good, right? It's built on Quartz framework, or Quartz Composer, which is kind of inside your Mac already if you have a Mac. It's basically a physics library for images, blah, 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 inside your Mac. And they have created a, yeah, if you know what it is, I described it perfectly. But it's basically like, you know, you draw these boxes and then you tell it to do things and you kind of stitch them together. I'm not very comfortable in this, but you might be. This might make sense to you. But it's kind of cool. Their demos are also pretty cool. This is kind of how they made that Facebook paper thing that everyone was like, that's the rage. But super kind of physics-based. And what's cool about this is, like, this Quartz Composer stuff, like, basically translates to iOS physics, like, immediately. So you kind of, the delta, we call that in enterprise business, the delta there is very low. So code prototypes. These are my favorite. My favorite code prototyping tool is CodePen.io. This is an amazing piece of software. Hashtag synergy, $, referral revenue. I use this to prototype all the time. I would actually call myself a professional code penner, except penner in Dutch is not a very good word. So we actually dog fooded this, and we built out the latest version of the Shop Talk Show website in CodePen. And we just basically made the homepage, made the single view page, and then we just kind of began putting that over a WordPress thing. So we kind of built out a little prototype of the site in CodePen really easily and really quickly. I think it was over the course of 2 weeks we had the whole thing done and shipped. So I use Jekyll RB. Jekyll, Kira just talked about it. But Jekyll is a thing from people at GitHub. It basically builds out a static site. And it's, I'm not going to lie, it's really hard to get up and going on your computer. It's a good half day, but it's totally worth it. For me, it's really cool. The way I kind of build my website is I just type a post, and I put a little bit of metadata. I can start getting into my own database kind of structure. But I put a little bit of metadata, and then I just write Markdown, and then it spits out a blog post that I just upload over FTP or whatever. I love it, and I've been using it for code prototyping almost every day for the last 5 months or so. Pattern Labs. Brad Frost, American philosopher, talked about Pattern Labs this morning. But these are amazing tools too, because it's basically everything you need to build your website. If we go back to that tiny bootstraps thing, this is you build out this Pattern Lab, man, you can just hammer out pages. People who don't even know how to code can hammer out pages because they're I want that one, that one, that one, stitch it together, it's a web page. Pretty cool technology, and I learned it it adds a whole level of consistency to your website that you kind of weren't expecting, at least in my experience. You can build your own. This is the one we kind of built for Retail Me Not, just to use their things that we are building for them and put it into a website. And this is now things that can be consumed by their website and add a whole level of consistency. One of my coworkers, Trent Walton, he likes to say Pattern Labs help you spend less time designing the container and more time designing the content. Because I think that any one of us here, you know, you get it like, hey, can we get a new marketing page or something? And you're like, cool, Photoshop, new document. You're like, cool. I'll just draw the container, put the header in, maybe you like screenshot it and like paste it in there. I've done that. And then you're like, okay, let's see, it's like 450 pixels wide. And then I put the thing, you know, like, God, that's boring. And kind of a waste of time, if I'm totally honest. So you can spend more time designing the thing that goes in that container rather than designing the container over and over and over and over every single morning of the rest of your existence. Frameworks and libraries. These are good. I like these. Bootstrap. Who's heard of Bootstrap? Yeah? You're afraid to raise your hand because everyone yells at you if you use Bootstrap at a conference. I've sat through hours of Bootstrap hatred. I have come to the conclusion that a framework is simply a group of, it's a website that someone else coded, therefore is not good enough, and I have to redo it. I think that's what a framework is. It is just not good enough because I'm a snobby developer. I use Bootstrap on the accessibility project. This is a project, an open source project to raise awareness about accessibility. I encourage you to check it out if you are scared of accessibility or don't know anything about it, like I kind of still am today. I built this in like 24 hours using Bootstrap. It was a great way to get an idea up and out and like shared with the world, and then people can contribute. We're going to move away from it, but like that's after 2 years. It worked for 2 years plus. So Foundation from Zerb, this is cool too. They're a little more bleeding edge, but it's arguably a prettier product and a better experience. You could use this. I've been looking at this one, Ionic framework. This is kind of a specific mobile framework. Like you build a mobile website. It's like an ios.css file or something like that. It's pretty cool, and it can help you compile to like native devices and stuff too. So this is cool. I like it. I recommend it. And this is if you get overwhelmed by tools, this is a quote I found recently. A tool is just an opportunity with a handle. So if you just think about like tools that we use, you know, there's a lot out there. It can be overwhelming and scared, but you know, it's just an opportunity. You don't have to take it. Just maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. Just you be the judge of your own life, I guess. I don't know. Okay, how we prototype at Paravel. Oh, here we go. We do a lot of prototyping, but our kind of one rule of thumb is get to code as soon as possible. And I'll kind of advocate for this. Some people will say it doesn't, you don't even have to get to code, and that's dangerous, but for websites. But get to code as soon as possible. So the first thing we do though is we start with sketching, right? And spoiler alert, like this is a sketch, okay? Pretty easy. This is kind of, we're working on the coupon part of Retail Me Not. And coupons, like, this is a very important piece to a coupon website, is the coupon. But we start here. Weird. Okay, all right. So we start here, and it's like a sketch. And then what we do is we go to Photoshop. And you guys are like, oh my God, you just, they use Photoshop, And I say that, yeah, we do, but I have 2 caveats. Number 1, JPEGs are lies. Don't trust them. They will trick you. They will trick your employers. They will trick your clients. They are tricky, tricky. That's a good tweet. The best JPEG is the one you can actually build. So you got to think about that too. It's like JPEGs can be cool, but like, can we build it? You got to think about that sort of stuff. So, but we go and, oh, I forgot about this one. This is a talk, or a quote from Jared Spool, who was on the Shop Talk show. And I really like this. Like the fidelity of your thinking or your prototype should match the fidelity of your thinking. And this is why we kind of end up going to Photoshop, because we like to add just a little bit more fidelity to this idea that we made. We took the sketch, and that's super rough and bad, but we like to just think it through and just see how it kind of all looks in a kind of a controlled environment, I guess. This is a JPEG. I mean, you guys have seen this. You know, this is just, that's the sketch, but now it's a JPEG. And you're probably like, whoa, it kind of changed. It's like, yeah, well, we had discussions, but it's not really hard to get here, because you have a pattern lab. If you establish a pattern lab beforehand of how your site's going to look and feel and work and what buttons look like, what type looks like, making this the coupon in a JPEG is simple. And it's actually even easier when you start getting to code. So we take this JPEG to HTML. Maybe you send off to a service in Indonesia or something, I don't know. And then you're like, okay, bleep blurp. You just, in my brain, I can look at this JPEG and I can already start drawing boxes, you know, and then I can already start kind of adding semantics. And I can even like look at that little thing and it says expand, you probably can't read it, but like, I'm like, oh, that has JavaScript. That's gonna ruin my life. So, every time I go, that's 2 weeks of work, I think. So, it's kind of cool. We can start planning from here. And truth be told, I could have started coding from this point. Like the boxes are the same, I kind of know what they do, but again, we like to just kind of think it through a little bit more. So then I go to CodePen, and I take that sketch, that Photoshop, and I start making something. And you'll see like the little bottom one is JavaScript. I even have JavaScript functionality in here working. And what this is really cool, because for me, this is when a website or any kind of component you design, this is when a design comes alive, because you don't control it. It's just squeezy. You said, math, work for me, and you prayed and you lit a candle, and it just, you hope it works. This is where, I know people like call this, what is browser wanking? Is that the phrase? I'm sorry, that's uncomfortable. But I like to call it the accordion of life, you know? I feel like this is when a website comes alive. And with JavaScript functionality, it really comes alive. In this example, we actually had that little heart star thing, and we actually found a really serious problem. It was just like, we had this like click it, and like a little box comes up, and it was just like, uh-oh, that actually does not work at all. It's bad, it's terrible. You know, but we also, like, we could have spent a lot of time photoshopping that, but since we were working together, we kind of discovered a problem early on. One thing that's really important, because like I said, I was sharing this with my designers as I was coding it out, share what you're building. I think this is like a fundamental part of web design. We share on Slack. You know, I'm browser testing in IE8 or something here. But I share problems. I'm like, okay, this is a problem. I just want you to know I'm sharing with you. CodePen is a really great sharing tool. Again, ka-ching, it is, if you're not using it, I really think you should. But it's a great sharing tool. You can you pay money, but you can, there's a collaboration mode where two developers or designers and developers can work together. There's a mode where I can show you a live editing preview, like you just basically subscribe to my TV channel of development. There's so, and then all the code is kind of right there. So there's kind of no questions. It's not buried in some whatever, like some SVN repo somewhere in space. It is like right there, just in CodePen. It's pretty great. Forward HQ, developers in the audience, any developers? Okay, this is kind of to y'all. This is a tool that I use to share my local host across the internet with my coworkers. And this is cool. We're all a remote staff, but one thing I do is I will share my build so they can all pop in and see how things are going. There's a free one. That one costs $5, but I like it because it gives me a vanity URL, and I love vanity. Super vain. Localtunnel.me is the free version. It's really good too. It just gives you a little gibberish thing, and yeah, pretty great. But the key point is don't hoard the process. I feel like in web design, whenever somebody's hoarding the process, whenever somebody kind of like, mustache, right? I'm gonna go design PSDs, and they disappear for 2 weeks. They're like hoarding the process. Or like the developer, you give him the developer the PSDs, and he's like, I'm gonna go develop it. Why did I do that? You're hoarding it. You're like, this is mine. It's good. It's perfect. Don't worry about it. And that's not what web design is to me. I feel like web design is a team sport. And this is maybe something I heard from Jen Lucas. I feel like web design is all about people. I don't think I realized that when I started web design. I was like, I'll make cool websites, blah, 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 blah. But the more you think about it, when you like get clients, you get bosses, you get randos, you get all kinds of people providing information. In fact, you're just a communication channel to a user. Web design is ultimately about people. It's a team sport. And you can design a vacuum and you can be perfect and flawless in every manner, but really, it's about other people. Web design inevitably is a team sport. So, I would like to talk to you about this concept of flow. Who's heard of flow? Okay, flow, this is where we're starting to switch to play. This is by, oh boy, Mihai Cumberbatch. Mihai Cumberbatch. He wrote a book about flow. And flow is the mental state of operation in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, yes, full involvement, yes, and the enjoyment in the process of the activity. Is this your everyday life when you're at work? Are you fully engaged, fully immersed, and just weeping with enjoyment? Probably not, huh? This has made like some circles in like TED Talks. TED Talks are cool, right? But this has made like the rounds kind of there, and it's good. It's a good book. It's kind of it's sort of a self-helpy vibe, and people have kind of used it, you know, sort of like I am the best. I'm going to be flowful at work, you know. And it's good. It's worth reading. It's a very cool concept. Here's a chart if you're interested. I'm going to stay out of the upper middle octant. I'm not qualified to talk about that. But it's kind of this idea that throughout a given day or maybe even a project, like you exist in any of these states. You know, whether you're like, if it's a low challenge level and you have a low skill level, or it's a project of a low skill level, you're very apathetic. You're like, I don't care about this. This is dumb. But if it's a high challenge level and you have a low skill level, you're like, I can't do it in that particular domain. I mean, I'm not saying like Photoshop or code. I'm saying like, you know, maybe it's UI and illustration or something, you know, kind of, it can be anywhere. But the idea here is kind of I'm going to use the laser. Wow. Okay, if I understand this chart correctly, you can actually kind of traverse these lines, like slide up and down. Like if you were very anxious, but you managed to raise your skill level, you might slip into another domain. But the one we're kind of interested in is sliding up from like apathy, worry, and sliding into flow. And it's kind of interesting how this happens. I'll explain it. But first, I want to talk to you about Japanese biker gangs. The Bosozoku. I told you I was going to tie this in, and you guys didn't believe me, but here it is. I learned about it from this book, Kamikaze Biker by Ikuya Sato, and this is a very boring ethnological study about the Japanese biker gangs of like in Kyoto of the 1980s or something like that. It's a very not so entertaining book. It's charts and graphs the whole way through. But the thing about it is this biker gang would achieve group flow. And that's kind of the difference between like I'm my own person, I do flow, versus like how do you achieve flow as a team in your team. And the enjoyment of speed and thrills affords the opportunity for genuine flow experience, engrossing their attention and goals. So they would set a goal, these kamikaze biker gangs, they'd like say, we're going to go drive through Tokyo at 50 miles an hour, which is like twice the speed limit. Oh my gosh. And we're going to make a lot of noise. That's our goal. We're going to do that. Or maybe it's like the goal is going to be like swerving through traffic at 100 miles an hour. Not my idea of fun, but it was their idea of fun. Maybe it's like get into a fight with another rival biker gang. I don't recommend that for your company, but maybe that's what it is for your company. I'm trying to inspire. So this is from the movie, I'll turn it down. This is from Godspeed You Black Emperor, just to give you a view of what it was like. They're riding, they have these horns they modified. It's awful. Sounds terrible. They're swerving. You can't do that in Japan. You can't swerve like that. Japan is orderly. Oh, they're making so much noise. And then, like, I don't know if you see it, but at one point, this guy, like, kicks this other person's bike. And it doesn't make any sense. Why would you kick your friend's bike? But you just do it because you're in a biker gang. And these biker gangs were interesting. They were like half Japanese mafia yakuza and half like motor touring club. It's interesting. I think it's a very cool ethnographical comparison, Dave Rupert. The matching of skills and challenges is an essential feature of flow. That comes from like Mihai Cumberbatch's book. But so, and how it works in the context of the Bosozoku is lowering the challenge level and matching the skill level. So if you think about that chart, when you lower the challenge level, suddenly everybody's skill level goes up. So you can kind of move up into that flow thing if you just lower the bar that you're trying to hit. Okay? This is going to translate to web design, I promise. Why do you participate in Boso rides? This was kind of a question they asked these Bosozoku riders. And the first one is being seen, meidatsu. And this is kind of just, this isn't like celebrity or fame. It's just like kind of literally like people going, whoa, what's that? Or like, it's just kind of like being acknowledged yeah, it's kind of weird, but it's not even like a fame celebrity. It's just like being acknowledged, I guess, of your existence or something. Communitas, being in a group, being in a gang, that was part of the reason they did this. And then the third reason was play. They enjoyed riding and speed and thrills and fun. And if I'm honest with you, this is the exact same reason why I do web development. I enjoy like getting my work out there, having it being seen. I enjoy the community, conferences like this, and I enjoy playing with websites and code and doing fun things. That is entertaining to me. And these guys knew how to play. I mean, they wore these weird like kamikaze fighter pilot, you know, outfits, but then they like dressed up their bikes with like sweet airbrushing. And then they got older, and they got kids, and they started dressing up their cars and their vans. Oh boy, did they dress them up. And as they got older, you know, this group of individuals, I love White Boots. He's my favorite. Oh, he doesn't care. He's wearing white boots with a black outfit. They got older. Their hair got older. Got taller. But they still know how to play. Smash cut. Group play can lead to group flow, in which you're having fun and enjoyment, full engrossment in the activity of blah, blah, blah. So set the goals to match skills. So if your team, you have to kind of take an honest look at your team. If your team has a high level of skill, awesome. Like raise the bar to a high challenge. If your team has a mediocre level of skill, maybe lower the challenge. And that's kind of where I'm getting at with prototypes. Move faster, have more fun. So I'm going to talk about the benefits of prototypes in the workplace. If you are a boss, you'll really enjoy this section. If you're an employee, I'm going to give you the secrets of running your own successful billion-dollar company. Not really. All right, prototypes help solve arguments. This is an interesting thing we noticed in our work at Paravel. For example, my coworker designed this thing. It's like just a little drop-down filter thing. Pretty standard. You guys are probably all like, yeah, looks good enough, right? Sure, ship it. Nuh-uh. If you're a developer, the skin is crawling on your neck. Because, da-da! And you're like, what's going on? What? What's the problem? And then I like come to you and I won't say, won't work because it's weird. And like, you're like, turns out that's super unhelpful in a Skype call, I learned. So what I did is I took it into CodePen and I illustrated the problem. just the way that like the internet draws boxes and stuff like that. Like you would have like borders and like double shadow thing, and that's kind of like weird and not cool, right? That's not good for your website. There's tricks, you could like lower the amount of shadow and it would be less noticeable, but it'd still be there. And then I could do like some like hacky stuff to like overlay a line to like hide a line or something like that. I'm not gonna do that. I know I've been burned by that enough. So, but as I was making this, I was like, wait a minute, there's a new like CSS property called filter. And you can do like a filter drop shadow. Ta-da! It doesn't work on every device. That's so like bummer, but it works just like a drop shadow would in Photoshop or something like that. So that's really cool. But now we can have a conversation about the pros and cons of each approach, which is a better conversation than won't work because it's weird. So this can help you solve problems. IDEO is a design agency, and they say if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. And that's a really awesome thing. I like to change it and say, like, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a prototype is worth 1,000 Jira tickets. It will save you time and bullshit. So, wow and impress upper management. I would like you to come with me on a fantastic journey across space and time. And imagine that you are the CEO of a high-powered company with blue windows. And you have 2 designer employees. One is wearing the same shirt I'm wearing right now, almost. The second one wears tacky developer shirts. So you challenge them, I need a new website, I need it by tomorrow, go off and design. And so the first designer is like, well, they go off. I don't know. I've been making websites like 20 years. I still don't know how long it takes to make a website. Is it like 3 days? Is it like 4 months? I really don't know. I'm still learning. But this designer goes off and does the classic like art school thing, makes a poster, prints it out, holds it up, and it's like, cool, awesome. It looks great. It looks so Swiss. Some of it's kind of like jacked, right? Like, I'm not sure you can like split words or whatever. Like, not super sure, but whatever. Like, we could get there, Meanwhile, the other scumbag goes off and makes this thing. Look at him. He's scrolling a web page and he's so happy. So imagine again, you are the CEO of this high-powered company. What do CEOs think about? Anyone? Anyone? Teslas. They're saying, how many Teslas can I buy? How many Teslas can I purchase? I want to go to the country club and drive up in a Tesla. So what's their answer going to be? The poster printed out or the one on the iPad? Probably this one. And I think that is because it's one step closer to production, to Teslas. One step closer to the Tesla machine. I think this is really important. Like when we talk about projects succeeding or whatever, I think like this is really important to have that extra step. I mean, it's effort, but it's kind of minimal effort to get to that point. Another reason why the CEO might choose that is because prototypes reduce risk. This is a quote from Chris Balt from Microsoft, who we worked with, talking about the launch of Microsoft.com. What we did is we actually deployed a single static web page. Like we just put up a static web page, and like people figured out that URL and started tweeting it. It was like in The Verge and stuff, and even John Gruber was like, yeah, looks good, ship it. And you're like, that's actually a pretty good vote of confidence if you're like just shipping a prototype. But if we had gone through the whole funnel to like integrate this in their CMS and translate that to 100-something languages, we would have got broke down. We would have been busted. So like this little prototype ended up confirming some suspicions, almost like an A/B test, but yeah, it like confirmed some suspicions that, hey, this plan might actually work earlier without the cost of going into the big old CMS. So that's kind of what I'm saying here is that if you have a big gnarly CMS, pull out that problem, lower the skill level, and you might achieve a better result in the end. The last thing I'd like to kind of talk about, before, I'm going to try a demo, but we'll see how I'm running out of time. But the cost of not shipping, I think this is really important, and I don't think we talk about this enough. Just through circumstances like project managements and different things, I realized in 2014 that I would ship nothing. And I started getting kind of depressed. I was like, oh man, this isn't going so well. And I realized I kind of placed some value, like self-worth or something, in the act of shipping, getting something out there, getting it validated, your assumptions, your thoughts, all the work you've been doing gets validated when you ship code live. And it sort of started wearing on me. And I asked other people about it, people I knew were kind of in the same situation. And they're like, yeah, I think I'm going to quit my job because I haven't shipped anything. So like that's a serious risk for a business. You lose knowledge, you lose employees, you lose lots of things when people quit. Like if the popular person leaves your company, that's a bad thing for your company. So that's something I want, I'd love to hear your stories or whatever of not shipping, but it's something I think about often is like, is there an intangible cost to not shipping code? Your coworkers will really, really enjoy this workflow of prototyping your way to production. And that is the end of my talk.